Well, thank you all for joining me here today. I am excited and proud to make an announcement on our unclaimed property division, or iCash. As a little reminder, iCash is money that has gone missing, that is held by a financial institution or a corporation, but belongs to people and organizations in the state of Illinois. It can be something like a lost paycheck, perhaps proceeds of a life insurance policy that weren't paid out, or maybe contents of a safe deposit box that were never collected. Well, that money doesn't belong to the banks or financial institutions. It belongs to Illinois citizens. It's our job to return it. And since coming into office, I'm excited to announce that we have now returned over 1 million properties to individuals and organizations in the state of Illinois. Why is this important? Frequently, I tell people that it's important we get this money out because it's my job. 2, because it's fun. And 3, because it's good for our state. When we get that money back into our citizens' hands, and they can spend that money at businesses or local restaurants, and that money circulating throughout the economy does a lot more good for our state than it does sitting in a vault in Springfield. Now, how were we able to do this? We have returned 1 million properties since my time coming in office, but from the time the unclaimed property division was brought in the Treasurer's office until I came in 2015, the total number of properties was about 500,000. So we have doubled the number of properties returned. Now, that wasn't easy, but I knew it was something we needed to do when I took this office because I heard too many stories from people saying, "Treasurer, you've got my money." But they said it's too difficult to claim, or it was too much of a hassle, it wasn't worth it. Well, as I said, it's my job. I like doing this job. It's as if I get to play Santa Claus 365 days a year giving away presents. But we worked with the General Assembly in a bipartisan manner to change state laws to make it easier for people to claim that which belongs to them. We did that by starting e-claiming, and then a new program called Fast Track, and eventually Money Match, so that some individuals in the state don't even have to go to our website to file a claim. We'll just send them a check. But that doesn't affect everyone. We still encourage people to go to our website at illinoistreasurer.gov. Go onto our website and see if we have money that belongs to you. We find about 1 in 4 people who go to our website find we have something that belongs to them. But when you go there, if we don't have something for you, we encourage you to check for your family members. Frequently, unclaimed property will come to us because someone in the family has passed away and they didn't tell their family members where all of their accounts and all their money was stored. Also check for organizations. Check for your business. Check for your church. Check for a nonprofit you're involved with, because we also love returning money to them as well. By working to make common sense reforms to our state law and working in a bipartisan manner, we've made it easier for people to get the money that belongs to them. And we're excited to celebrate this milestone today of returning over 1 million claims since taking office. And so with that, thank you all for coming out here. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Do you know the cash amount or the value amount?
I can't. That's a great question. Thank you for reminding me. I left that off my notes. Since coming to office, we've returned over $1.4 billion. That's billion with a B.
The spike there, it obviously jumps up.
Yep.
Is the dip a COVID-related?
I would say two things. One is we changed state law allowing money match to go into effect. That allows to clear a lot of properties off our book. That explains the spike. 2, when COVID hit, like most employers, we sent our employees home. That made it more difficult to process claims. But one of the things we found is the dip wasn't so great because a lot of individuals who were working from home were sitting in front of their computers all day, or maybe they just had time on their hands and we had more people claiming. So the dip is a little bit of COVID, but it's a little bit, we just cleared a lot of properties off of our books by using Money Match.
Not too long ago, the federal government was talking about taking unclaimed treasury notes. See, whatever happened with that?
Well, that is a great question. It is a great question because it's something we have been very interested in. So especially savings bonds. You all know savings bonds. Perhaps you or perhaps your children, for their birthdays, for their graduations, for confirmation, received a savings bond. $50 payable on a future date. Well, too often those savings bonds are put into a drawer, they're put into a lockbox somewhere, and they're forgotten about, and they're not cashed. Well, it still belongs to the recipients. And we think the federal government should take greater efforts to return that money, to make sure it is paid out to those graduates, those children, to those people who have gone through their confirmation, for whatever reason they received them. And we've been working with members of the legislature. In Illinois, Danny Davis has been a big proponent of this legislation to make sure the federal government returns that money, gets in their rightful hands. And we think a great way to do that is working with states' unclaimed property divisions. We don't need to create a whole new federal agency. We don't need to create a new level of government. States are already returning money, and we're already more trusted to return this money. We would like to work with them.
I'm reading between the lines, and it sounds like what you're saying is you're doing a better job than your predecessor at running this program. Can you say more specifically how you're doing that?
Yeah, so more specifically, we came in and wanted to make changes. I'll tell you, it's very personal. When I was running for office, people told me, hey, you have some money to claim. And when I looked at it, the amount was relatively small. It required me to print out documents, to find old documents from an old address, to sign something, to notify, to get it notarized and mailed back. And for me, that just wasn't worth the money, the time and hassle. I heard stories like this from all kinds of people on the campaign trail and after getting elected. And so we decided we need to make it easier for these $5 claims, these $20 claims that people weren't collecting. You know, we can hold on to this. We'll hold on to it forever. But we don't want to. We want to get it back in their hands, so we ask the question, how can we make it easier? One of them, we live in a digital age today. People don't keep a lot of papers around. They have documents stored online, and everyone has a cell phone with a camera on it. So now through e-claiming, in certain examples, they can just take a picture and upload that and send it to us. It's easier for them and it's easier for us. We're dealing with less paper. When I came in, I found that we had a couple of people whose job it was to open all the mail, to unfold, to put into folders, to put into filing cabinets, and it was a cumbersome process. We are not only paying more, we're paying faster as a result of changes like that. You know that if you go to apply for a mortgage, that bank can tell you all kinds of things about you, Dave Dahl.
I'm afraid so.
Exactly. They will know if you paid your credit cards on time. They know all of the houses you have had. They will know your power bills. They can find this on the power of the internet. We did the same thing. We work with a program now. We created a program called Fast Track, which allows you to put your name and social security number in. We can do an internet search and save you from going back and going into your files and finding copies of old power bills or old water bills that you used to need to send in. And you can lead a horse to water, but you can't necessarily make him drink. But then we had the idea that we can't just wait for people to go to our website and find things. We should be more active. And that was our Money Match program, which we've come here. And that's a big reason for that spike there. There are people living at the addresses that they had unclaimed property at. We know they're living there because they fill out forms to state government swearing under oath that they live at that address, the social security number. And if they send that to another part of state government, we now can share with them, match them, and in many cases just mail them a check. So by making common sense changes to state law, by getting with the times and using new technology, we have been able to significantly increase the number of properties that we return.
Unclaimed property auctions, talk about, I guess, that process, and is that money still waiting? Like, say they have an old, collection of baseball cards or whatever.
Yeah.
That money's still waiting for the next of kin or the rightful owner, right?
So we will hold on to money forever, but physical property, we have a physical vault that used to be down here in this building, and it fills up with property. Well, we run out of space, and so we will hold auctions to clear out our vault, but we will record how much that Mickey Mantle baseball card sold for, and we will keep that on file. And so when eventually the owner finds that we have had their Mickey Mantle baseball card, or their children or their grandchildren, will pay out the value it sold at auction. And in addition, interest paid out as well.
Speaking of that vault, do you have a bigger vault over at the old Chase building, and how's that process going?
We do have more space. In combined space, we have bigger vaults. We have multiple vaults. When Chase Bank, formerly Marine Bank, was looking to downsize, they tried to sell the building. And what they found was there weren't a lot of companies out there that wanted to have so much vault space. They didn't really need that. They didn't want that. But there was one employer that had a real interest in that. And the Treasurer's Office, we found it a great way to safely, securely store and segregate properties to make sure that they're safe until we can track down their owners or until an auction, and then the money goes into our account. But sitting in that account is nice for us here, but I'll just remind you, it does a lot more good for the state when we return it to the rightful owners. Because when we send someone a check for $25 for a rebate or a refund they didn't collect, no, they don't go and buy stock and let it sit somewhere. They say, hey, there's newfound money. Let's go out for ice cream. Let's go out to the movies. And families making purchases like that is good for our economy.
Well, what's the weirdest thing that you've found in the unclaimed property?
Well, I will answer a slightly different question. What are some of the more interesting things we found in unclaimed property? Now, sometimes we have some weird things come in safe deposit boxes, but we also have great stories. Stories like Ernest Ulrich, a bachelor, veteran, a Boilermaker who had worked as a stationary engineer throughout his career, saved a lot of money. And in his will, he wanted that money to go to charities throughout Chicagoland. Unfortunately, when he passed away, he didn't have any children. His siblings had passed away. For some reason, his will and his wishes weren't executed. And money from his accounts was turned over to our office. We were able to track it down. And we returned just this last year, $90,000 to Shriners Home for Children, helping kids to walk straight, helping kids with problems. That is one of the more exciting stories. Or even more recently, we found a woman, a retired teacher in Chicago, was a graduate of Spelman College, had worked her life, outlived her husband, outlived her child, and she wanted to give back that institution that gave so much to her. We were able to give $250,000 to Spelman College, her alma mater. So it's things like that that really sort of warm my heart.
They're not weird.
They're not weird, no. Well, I'll tell you one of them that's not weird, but also a result of life insurance policies. Someone on my staff tracked down a $10,000 life insurance policy. Called a woman and said, hey, were you aware that your father took out a life insurance policy? I had no idea. Well, you were the beneficiary, and it's $10,000. And she starts crying. And, $10,000 is nice, but it's not life-changing for a lot of people. I said, ma'am, are you okay? She said, well, actually, my father just had celebrated the 10-year anniversary of my father passing away. And he was so important in my life. He did so much for me, always took care of me. And I was just sad the other day thinking he's no longer there for me. And when you told me that he took out a life insurance policy, it was like he came down from heaven and wrapped his wings around me. And the person on the phone in my office starts crying, and she's crying. And it's things like this that are really touching. And she said, he always looked out for me while he was alive. And even in death, he's still looking out for me today. This is why we do this, stories like that. And I could go on and on for a while. The people we have called who just had $200 and broke out in tears. So are you okay? But some people, $200 is the difference whether they can stay in their apartment the next month or not. She said, I was just thinking the other day, how am I going to make rent this month? And thank you. I know I'll be able to make rent this month with that.
Off topic.
Sure.
The comptroller candidate, Tom Dimmer, put out a statement saying that, I guess, what role do you have in the rebate checks that are going to go out? And he's saying that you should speak out against a, quote, corrupt practice of campaigning with taxpayer dollars by keeping your name or any elected official's name off those checks.
I think he called on me to leave my name off the checks. It's my constitutional duty to sign checks. He's asked a constitutional officer not to sign checks. He is a lawmaker. If he wanted to change state law, he could have changed state law. I don't know many checks that aren't cashed without a signature.
And
Does
also,
it have to be a check? Can you do direct deposit?
Oh, in many cases we do. And our name isn't on that. ACH, about half of the payments going out are ACH. So I think some people just don't spend a lot of time preparing for the offices they're running for, and they make mistakes.
and he also, again, reiterated, he claims $275,000 you had previously gotten from campaign funds related to former House Speaker Michael Madigan. Any reaction to that? I know I asked you a couple of months ago.
Yes, we were here a month or so ago. I got money from the Democratic Party of Illinois. I'm a Democrat. The Democratic Party of Illinois works to help elect Democrats.
Why do you think the Democrats are are not doing as much as maybe they could be to denounce former Speaker Madigan and his indictment, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I don't hear you say Madigan's a bad guy, his indictment, blah, 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 he should be locked up forever. I don't hear that. Why do you think Democrats may be a little not going there?
Well, I would say he is no longer the speaker, not because of indictments. He's no longer speaker because members of the Democratic Party, of his caucus, said they wouldn't support him. And then he was no longer speaker. He hasn't been speaker for approaching 2 years now.
He's accused of being a criminal. He's accused of, you know what he's accused of.
Dave, lots of accusations are made. There's a candidate for running for governor right now who's accused of engaging in pay-for-play with city vendors, taking big contributions and getting jobs for girlfriends and wives. Why aren't candidates coming out and arguing against that? I'm here to talk about unclaimed property today. We could talk about all kinds of people out there, but I think if you're going to ask these questions about Democrats, you should ask other candidates what their thoughts are on corrupt practices for mayors and candidates for governor.
So what do you say to the guy who wants the Mickey Mantle baseball card back and you've already sold it?
We had a public auction, people came out, and hopefully they bid a high amount for it. And hopefully we're giving you more money than it would get today.
I think I still have like a $35 check from an employer I had back in 2007.
Help us raise those numbers, Greg.
What would the interest be on that? I mean, is that, I think it was like $35. I was a server, so I was getting server pay. And
We have a statutorily agreed to amount based on inflation and returns we're getting, and we'll pay out interest for up to 10 years. If after 10 years people don't claim their money, then we'll still keep the amount. We won't ever take ownership of it, but we stop paying interest on it.
I really do want prize with that, Greg.
right. Anything
Well,
else?
so I'll say one story though. It isn't one of the weirdest, but I did contact a lobbyist to call me on something, and he said, "Hey, and by the way, thank you for the change you made to unclaimed property." I said, "Hey, they're just doing my job," and he chuckled, and I said, "Is there a story?" He says, "Actually, I just claimed it was $89.46 from you." I'm like, "That's great," and he's like, "It was wonderful." Now I know this person makes significantly more than $89, and I said, "Now why are you so happy at $89? He says, "It's not the money, it's the story, the reminder." He was a graduate of Eastern Illinois University, and while at Eastern, he worked at a McDonald's. But he said, the day I graduated, I packed up my car, and I drove back to Chicago, and I was never back in Charleston. But he'd been working that week before and hadn't gotten paid. Just because he didn't collect his last paycheck from McDonald's doesn't mean they get to keep it. Eventually, they turned over to us, and we tracked him down. It was a nice memory of his undergraduate years. And so your story is not uncommon. I've heard other ones like that. And please, help us to move that needle in the right direction by claiming your $35.
Thank you.
Right? Thank you, everyone.
10 years.